Good afternoon. Well, welcome to the Tech Talk Episode 4 podcast. We are super excited to be here today. Today, we're joined by Peggy Sammon, co-founder and CEO of GeneCapture here in Huntsville. GeneCapture has developed the Capture platform, a portable diagnostic system designed to identify infectious pathogens and determine antibiotic susceptibility right at the point of care, potentially delivering answers in about an hour instead of days. But before we talk about technology, I want to start with the person behind it. Peggy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here.
Excellent. I'm super excited to talk to you today, not only because this is our first time really talking in person, but I also have an opportunity to learn today. So I'm very, very excited to hear about you, yourself, your company, and all the great things you guys are doing. But so a little background, and you correct me where I'm wrong. Peggy, you grew up in Canada, one of 10 children.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's right.
I want to know a little bit about that dynamic. How was that dynamic growing up with 10 kids?
10 kids, when you're part of it, you don't think anything is different. Only looking back now, I realize what a big deal it was to be one of 10. But I'm on the older side of the 10.
Okay.
And I often feel that it's, it's good experience to grow up in a team because in your life, you end up being part of teams all the time anyways. And so now our family is still very close. We get together often, and I have such strong relationships with my brothers and sisters. So I feel very fortunate.
Fantastic. I can say I guess I could understand a little bit. I come from 5, so there's 5 others.
Yes,
I'm
good.
out of 6. So I kind of understand that dynamic, but it did definitely teach me a lot of different aspects that I use in business nowadays of just the teamwork aspect. Mm-hmm. Do you miss, how long did you live in Canada?
Until I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
So we spent our winters in our school year in Toronto and then our summers on a farm in Quebec. And it was a lovely life, but I'm happy to be in the U.S. We were very proud to move to the United States of America. That's what we called it. And I think it's opened up a lot of horizons for us. So it's really an interesting move. And it's interesting to move as a family that large to a new school system, new way of doing things. And very, very lucky.
So when you moved from Canada to the U.S., where did you come directly to Huntsville, or I'm guessing you've made different stops before you ended up down here in Huntsville?
You're right. We moved to Connecticut.
Okay.
My dad was working for a company that was based in New York City, so Connecticut is where we moved to. And then a couple years later, went to college at Bucknell in Pennsylvania, and then took a job in Boston, and then that job became a job with a company that was headquartered in Huntsville. So I didn't come to Huntsville right away, but the headquarters was here. And stayed in Huntsville for quite a while. And then my husband has also got an international background. So we had decided as a family we wanted to do something international before the kids, and I have 4 children, before they went off to college. And we had a year in Australia, which was just a wonderful experience for us. So between Canada and the States and Australia, it's been a great ride.
That's awesome. Well, I know before the podcast started, we were talking about Olivia Redke. You will have to talk to her at some point because she spent a lot of time in Australia, actually.
Okay.
But I think she went to the university over there as well. But that's an interesting
I'd love to connect with her.
Yeah. We'll definitely do that after the podcast today. I know you've already kind of talked on how being a one of 10 has shaped how you lead teams today. You've also co-founded and chaired nonprofits like Village of Promise and Rocket City Civil Rights. Where did that drive for community impact come from? Was that from your family background, or could you talk a little bit more about that?
I feel one of my gifts is to help make other people's great ideas happen. So I'm often not the one that has the idea that makes this all happen. Certainly that's the case at GeneCapture. But when I see somebody working on something that I think is very meaningful, then I feel I can put my skills towards that. So the other great thing about being a co-founder on something or starting something is it's a very creative process. So I feel that just is nourishing to be able to start something and then see it grow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would say I would like to I like to share that same sentiment. It's amazing to see something flourish when you put a lot of heart and time and effort into it. And I can see that along the course of your career, you've done a phenomenal job at that. So that's awesome. We love to work with people that give back to the community. As you know, Dr. Carroll is a very big advocate like you of helping our local community succeed and do better and be better.
I mean, this is where our life is. Our days are spent here, so we want to make it great.
That's right. And there's a lot of places that need our help. So we greatly appreciate you doing that, helping the community out. Along the entrepreneurial side of the house, you've helped build multiple companies across different industries. And like you said, you lived internationally before settling here in Huntsville. What's the common thread across everything that you've built or helped co-found, et cetera?
Well, that's a good question. I guess the common thread is that you've really got to be interested in it. It takes so much effort, and the risk is so great to try to bring one of these projects off that you've got to just love the outcome. You've got to love the outcome and the team. So I'd say common thread is a unity of interest in what the product or the service is, and then being surrounded by a really great team, smart, skilled, fun.
Oh, yeah.
You know, without that, it doesn't happen.
And part of my recollection, I know you mentioned you went to a university in Massachusetts. Which one did you
Pennsylvania.
go to?
I went to Bucknell.
Bucknell.
Yes.
What did you study at Bucknell? Because I'm trying to understand your background and trying to weave that into what we're doing today. So what's your background in from an educational side of things?
Well, I'm old enough that I'm back in the days when majors weren't as confined as they are today. So I have an English major, but I was really interested in business. So it was a combination of English, communications, and theater. And those were just things I loved at the time. But I'd say my inspiration for going into business was probably my father, who I just admired how he ran things and ran the companies. And so that was probably the big inspiration.
So as you went through your career out of college and into, getting into your I guess co-founding, starting companies, et cetera, when did you realize you were more built, or let's say wired, to build companies rather than just work inside of them? I kind of want to understand, because that's a different theme of how you look at business, right? Is you can either be super successful inside of a business, or you can decide to say, I'm going to start something. Where did that drive come from to say, I want to start my thing and run with it?
You know, I think it was just experience. So the first job that I took with a company was ADS Environmental Services, which is still headquartered here in Huntsville. And that was a startup company. And I met my husband there, Ralph Petroff. And it was such a fun, energized experience that I think I just liked it. So many people's careers have a lot to do with their very first job. And it's definitely the case for me. So the first job was a very entrepreneurial. I loved it. I liked the energy from it. And so I stuck with that.
That's awesome. So you left the farm. I'm going to say farm life because that's what I associate Canada with, but that's only from my point of view. But you left farm life and became a huge community advocate, and then now leading a biotech company. So remarkable career so far, and still excited for what the future holds is what it sounds like to me.
I would say I've been very lucky, and I have worked hard, but I like to work hard.
Oh yeah, and when you say that phrase, it made me think of a phrase that Dr. Carroll uses is, when you like what you do, you don't always consider it work.
So
and I
true.
can see that in you just over the last 5-10 minutes of talking is when you enjoy something, it's not really work.
Yeah,
and you're passionate about it. And it's important to also be passionate about what you do, because if you're passionate about it, it means you're going to care more about it. Would you agree?
Totally agree. So I feel fortunate that I've fallen into an opportunity that I am passionate about. And all the companies I've worked for have been like that. There's been something about them that I've really wanted to make work. And I see that at TechMasters too. You know, there's products that you all are working on, but you really care about them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think that's what makes a company very successful is when you have employees and you also have the upper leadership of the company, when they not only, of course, work's important, revenue's important, expenses are important, but when you fundamentally have that environment to where people can flourish by just enjoying what they do, I think the sky's the limit when you empower your employees to just go in and enjoy what you do.
I couldn't agree more. And I know that's Dr. Carroll's philosophy, and he's forever saying it's a journey. It's not just one thing. You don't just solve or accomplish one thing. It is a journey, but to be able to do that journey in a fun, stimulating environment with people who are stimulating to you just makes all the difference.
I agree. I could not agree any more than what I do. So I want to talk a little bit now about gene capture. When did the idea for gene capture first take shape?
Well, I mentioned that I had spent some time in Australia. When I came back from Australia, Hudson Alpha was just getting started. It was pretty exciting. I had always had an interest in biology, biotech, any kind of high-tech applications. So one of my friends said, there's a lot of scientists who are trying to start new companies, and I offered to help with business plans, finance strategies. And one of the people I met was Dr. Krishnan Chittur, who was a chemical engineering professor at UAH. And he had just been awarded a patent through UAH. And I read that patent. I was very impressed with it. And I said, I'll co-found this one with you. And he said yes, and we did it together.
So you and Dr.
Chittur. Yeah.
Started Gene Capture together. So
Yes.
he's the other co-founder?
Yes.
Fantastic. So this idea of Gene Capture, of course, that's the company, right? And then the technology that you guys are developing inside of it, or within the company, just, the company does a lot of different things. But what problem in healthcare, and this is more for me, what problem in healthcare made you feel like this specific technology needed to exist?
Well, let me go back to saying that it's often other people's ideas that I help with. And so the origin story for Gene Capture is that Dr. Chittur had a baby born prematurely, very stressful. And a doctor came in and said, we see these shadows in the lungs. We think she's got pneumonia. So they started an antibiotic right away and sent a sample to the lab. And it took 3 days in the hospital before the results could come back. And the doctor came back in and said, great news, no pneumonia. We've stopped the antibiotic. And Dr. Chittur said, yeah, that's great news, but we've just pumped antibiotics into an immature immune system, preemie baby. What does that do? And why does it take so long? So his feeling was there's got to be a way to figure out what is causing an infection. So a germ that causes an infection is called a pathogen. So a pathogen there's got to be some way to identify it faster. So he had that in the back of his mind during all of his time at UAH, and he had a biotech lab over there. And one of their experiments, kind of stars lined up, and he said, that's it. That's how we can do it faster. So he had that. It was a personal experience, which is so often the case in innovation, a personal experience that leads to a solution.
And I love that aspect about that is someone, and just say it could be anyone, but it happened to him, a premature child, and he wasn't happy with how things were going. So he decided, I'm gonna find a cure for this. I'm gonna try to fix this issue, and he ran with it. Because a lot of people have great ideas, but they don't ever continue pursuing them.
There's a big difference between a good idea and actually pulling it off. But yes, a lot of innovation comes from a personal dissatisfaction with the way something goes or doesn't go.
So with the technology or the idea that the doctor from UAH had, when did you guys say, okay, we're going to go all in on this idea as a company? Was it like from the very beginning of like, this is something that the medical industry needs, we're just going to go all in? Could
Yes,
you talk a little bit from the business aspect?
It was right away.
Okay.
I think when I read the patent and saw that here is a fast way to identify what a pathogen is in a human body, so that currently takes 3 to 4 or more days in a lab, to be able to do that fast at the point of care, meaning you don't need a lab, I saw that could have a huge impact on the health industry, that it was a very meaningful project to go after. There was a lot of challenges. We'd have to be able to do it at a very low cost. We'd have to have the reliability up high. But I saw that as a really interesting product that would just have big impact on all of us, our kids, our families, other countries, the border. So we were right away saying, let's make this happen.
Yeah, and just for my personal experience, the more we talk about it, it even makes more sense to me because I have a 4-year-old daughter. We're very sick very often, and many times we go to the doctor and they do the swabs and do all these things, and then they're like, we think she has this, but we need to go. We're gonna have to send off to the lab, and then sometimes they treat her on the spot, like you explained. Sometimes they treat her on the spot with something. An antibiotic, but then they get the labs back and it's completely different. It's like, oh, they might have thought she had the flu or she actually has strep. And, you treat those two illnesses drastically different. And I can see a technology like this being super beneficial, not just only in the pediatrics, but just overall in the medical field. I think it has applications in a lot of different areas, and I'm sure we're going to get to talk about those opportunities.
But I'll just say that's a great example. The example you just gave is that, and I know when I brought my kids to the doctors in the early days, I walked out thinking they knew exactly what it was and I had the right medicine. I didn't realize how much guesswork goes on. And doctors are great. They do a lot of good guesswork, but it's very hard. So it's not only that maybe the wrong antibiotic was given, but if the antibiotic's not given because they're not sure what it is, then there's contagion, there's modifications, mutations. It's a very dangerous world that we live in right now with germs. And so to be able to identify them fast is just a huge, huge benefit.
No, I agree. And the aspect of just having it on site or on hand is huge. You don't have to wait to send it off, or whoever these companies are that do all this testing. That alone, like I started asking doctors. So I'd say, okay, we're going to do this test. When are you going to know something? Oh, it'll be 72 hours. Or I'm like, okay, that doesn't help us at all. And they're like, well, that's as quick as we can do. We have someone that picks it up after all the tests. At the end of the day, we send it off, etc. But let's go in and start talking about the technology. We're here, so we might as well talk about it. GeneCapture developed what's known as the Capture platform, a portable diagnostic system. And if I'm not doing the right, if I'm not describing it right, be sure to correct me. A portable diagnostic system that can identify infectious pathogens and determine antibiotic susceptibility at the point of care. For someone listening who isn't in the biotech, what is actually happening inside that platform? So I guess this is a good time to talk about the platform, explain it, and then I'll probably have some other questions because I'm just curious myself.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the way it's done today. So today a sample is taken, and that could be a blood sample, urine sample, a swab. And that sample is sent to a lab, and you're right, it's got to be picked up and driven to a lab unless you're right at the hospital. And then in the lab, they're going to put that in something like a Petri dish and let it grow. And that's the big thing. Let it grow so you can figure out what it is. And so what we're doing different, and I've actually got a cartridge to show you here, Luke, but what we're doing different is we take that sample and we put the sample in this little container here, raw sample, so raw urine, raw blood. And within about an hour, we have concentrated the germs in that sample, the pathogens, onto a smaller location. So that's called the concentration step. And then in this little vial here, we ultrasonicate that sample so it breaks open the cells and releases the molecular material. So we're looking for DNA, RNA. It releases that material, and then we run that material over a little microarray with hundreds of probes that we've designed to attract the molecular material of the pathogen. And when it attracts and connects, a light is emitted, a small light, and we look for that light almost like a bingo card. So in a nutshell, instead of letting something grow, we're breaking it apart to find out what's that unique signature in there that can happen.
Wow.
It's amazing. And, this could not have been done 20 years ago. The advances in genetics, the advances in microfluidics and plastics to be able to make a cartridge like this have made this possible now. So a lot of technologies have come together to make this work. But it is a breakthrough to be able to go from a raw sample to identifying the molecular signature of that sample in an hour. It's amazing.
So that cartridge that fits inside your overall, I'm going to call it machine. I'm probably not using the right term, but
machine is fine. Okay. An instrument, this fits into something, and then that reads the little bingo card that I was talking about.
Okay. And
it moves the fluids throughout the cartridge. So the cartridge is the magic of this whole system, but it fits in a little instrument to make it work.
Yeah, so for each new swab or whatever, you would just have a different cartridge and you just stick it in the machine and do it?
That's exactly right. So this is a disposable cartridge, one per test. And so that, I'm sure, gives you the idea. It's so important that we get the cost down on this because in healthcare, low cost is so critical. So a lot of our challenge has been, how do we put all this technology and information into such an inexpensive little piece? But you're right, it all fits inside that cartridge. And so that's been a lot of the innovation that's occurred during our relationship with TechMasters. We were building this technology and working with the Chem Biodefense Agency because as much as this is needed in the commercial world, and that is the big market, the military is also interested because they have soldiers and warfighters in far forward applications. And so when an infection happens there, you've got to know quickly. You don't have the time to move a sample or a person to find out what that is. So a rapid infection detection is very critical there, and that's been the interest from the military, which has had a huge impact on the company.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can see there's so many different applications. And I think this application is not just military when I say medical field, I mean that encompasses everything we do. Everyone always gets sick. Everyone is always looking to get well. So this is something that has to exist. Why do you think the technology like this has not been around or hasn't been thought of before? Like, do you think it's just people had the idea of doing this, or it's just strategic mindset from the people that you have working for you?
Good question. We
Yeah.
have some very, very smart and clever people on this team. But I think the very genesis of the idea is that it came from somebody who said it shouldn't take this long, Dr. Chittur, who's not a biologist. So if you're a biologist, you have these certain blinders on thinking, well, we've got to let it grow, we've got to let it do this. And he looked at it a different way, which is how can we deconstruct this fast? And I think that made a big difference in how we look at this. So why wasn't it done before? Partly it was technology that wasn't available, and partly it was mindset.
So when it comes to technology, how long have you guys been working on this? So I know you mentioned back you guys were part of the Mentor Projet program here at TechMasters, and you guys worked jointly on this effort. When did that start? And kind of the timeline of where we started here and then we're here now.
Sure. We started with a very small team and a lab over at Hudson Alpha in 2012. We formed the company a few years earlier, but we were doing just some basic science at the beginning. And we got involved in the Mentor Protégé program around, I think, 2018. And we were part of that for 5 years. So up through COVID, up until 2023. And during that time, a lot of the effort of the Mentor Protégé program was how to interface with the military, how to work with DoD, how to take a new product and follow it all the way through. So we gained tremendously from TechMasters' experience with the military.
So when it comes to this technology, of course, this cartridge you have to repeatedly make a lot of them, right? Because if you're going to be testing them, you have to have a large number. Because I guess a doctor's office has a lot of people come through it in a day. How quickly can you guys engineer this specific cartridge? Or do you guys do that all in-house? And from a prototyping, this is not a prototype. This is a proven technology now that exists, and trying to, I guess, receive a certification. Like, what's the process to take a technology through the Mentor Projet program? It's completed. You completed the program, and now you have a technology. Where are the hurdles that you're facing to get into the Department of War, formerly DoD, and the medical field? And can you talk about that aspect? Because I know there's probably a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to try to unpack some of that.
Sure. And that's a big journey that we're on. Mm-hmm. Dr. Carroll always talks about a journey. We're on a big journey there. So this particular cartridge is not a prototype. This is a manufacturable unit, but our instrument is a prototype. We still have prototypes in the lab. Until we receive clearance from the FDA, we can't commercialize this. It's got to go through the quality system of the FDA. And so that is still ahead of us. So even though we've gone through that Mentor Protégé program, we haven't come out of the other end of it with a product that we can commercialize right away. So that's the next big thing on our list, is how to take this cartridge along with the instrument and test it in thousands of places so that the FDA is comfortable that this is an accurate system. That's what's ahead of us. And that's a big project. We need funding for that. We need special quality people. We need a lot of inventory for it. So only then, when we get through the FDA process, will we be able to commercialize. And then, of course, it's going to be a very big, quick scale up.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah, because once this gets, and I'm going to speak saying it is going to get approved. Once this gets approved through the FDA, I can imagine the ramp up of production would have to increase dramatically. Because this is a technology that needs to be in the hands of the doctors. This is life-saving technology. From what I hear, this not only life-saving, it's just general illness. This will make our society a lot better and help doctors out dramatically because it takes the guessing game out of it.
That's exactly right. So we're a small company right now. It's kind of hard to imagine the really big picture side of this. But yes, this is going to have a very quick scale up to being looking at hundreds of thousands of these cartridges being used. So it's that's the fun part of the business, is looking at what that growth is going to be like.
Yeah, that's exciting because I mean I'm an engineer, but hanging around with Dr. Carroll for a while makes you a business person because he's all about revenue and expenses. But with I'm going to throw my engineer data science hat on here because I'm just curious. So you have this cartridge, and you explained it very well. Thank you for the explanation. But what kind of database? So what kind of, I guess, pathogens, or are you like that you have? I'm guessing you have a data side to this. You have the technology and the actual physical aspect. Could you talk about the data sets that are being used to help you identify certain illnesses, et cetera?
Yes. So on this cartridge is a small microarray, and on that microarray are dozens of spots, and in each spot are millions of little probes. And the answer that we get from those probes when the certain pathogen attaches to it is a piece of photonics, a little piece of light, and a certain the change in the dynamic range of the intensity of that light means how much of the pathogen is there. And it's not just one spot. So let's say in a certain sample, maybe E. coli is causing the problem. Several spots on our microarray will need to light up. So we have a profile. And that profile of light information is what's used in the initial database. So initially in goes light intensity data. That is then reduced to positive and negative control data. And then a profile gives an answer. So the answer would be that the pattern on this particular microarray is E. coli. Then that's the beginning of the answer. So, okay, we've got E. coli there. Now, the next step of it is what antibiotic is going to work well against that particular strain. And then if you think about it way beyond that, when this technology is adopted and is out globally, then you can have almost real-time information about what pathogens are where. So you can start to predict where is the contagion happening? How is this going to move across borders into different areas? Who's at risk? Where do we need to make sure we have the medicine? So the data side of it gets really fascinating. It starts with a little light signal and it ends with an AI predictive model.
I was about to say, yeah, because just right there kind of hit a light bulb went off to me of seeing the overarching effect that this could have. I mean, I'm just going to go back to like COVID. We could have been. I guess this would have the capability to identify something like the COVID virus.
Yes, it would. It would. The way the world attacked the COVID virus was to have a small, cheap test that just said, is it COVID or isn't it? Whereas what we're doing on our cartridge is, what is it? What of many, many things is it? But yes, if we could have had a faster, more accessible way to determine who's got COVID and who doesn't, it would have saved a lot of contagion.
Yeah, because the whole goal of like you were talking about these cheap, whatever they charge, I can't remember. It's been 6 years ago, but whatever the little small at home test, COVID test, there was no way to track it. People would be they would be what would be the term? I guess they would get COVID. And then they would test it, but it was not being reported.
There was no reporting, exactly. So that was was the terminal. And so you want to be able to have that information move on to be intelligent and be useful, informed data.
So all the tests, you put the cartridge in, the platform spits out the result. It gets stored in a database, and then that information would be shared out to whoever's using this technology.
Well, initially, the answer goes directly to the medical professional who can then say, okay, here's the medicine we want to give you. There's a lot of information and there's a lot of insecurity about who owns what data. So de-identified data is something that can be shared for predictive accounts, but people own their own data. So a specific illness, let's say that you had, your name's not going to get associated with that in a grand scheme of things. But you can be a citizen from Huntsville, Alabama, had this.
Yeah, so that's where the PII and all that comes into place. Okay, that makes sense. With this faster detection of an illness, how does that change the equation for hospitals and providers? Like, I know the dynamic is already interesting with providers. and hospitals of making a technology that gives them access to certain data rather quickly. What's the dynamic there between your company and I know you already mentioned the FDA, but like there's always some kind of pushback, right? So could you identify, I'm guessing there's been some pushback, but could you identify maybe some of the pushback that you've seen from either medical professionals in this field, or what's the general feedback that you're getting when you're demoing this capability to not just companies like TechMasters, but to other organizations?
Well, for the most part, we get very positive feedback.
That's awesome.
Because when you talk about what is the dynamic, the dynamic of bringing the infection detection to the patient, not to the lab, is very big. We're cutting out a lot of time, a lot of really wasted non-value add time. And so for a lot of hospitals, they're overwhelmed with samples that come in that don't need to be emergent. The answer should be back at the clinic, back at the doctor's office. For some patients, it's important to know how dangerous something is right away to have them be quarantined. So all those dynamics play into the way the medical field works. But as far as pushback goes, I'd say we get the typical new company pushback. Oh, it hasn't been done before. Oh, are you sure it's going to work? Oh, it sounds so complicated. That's the kind of pushback that we get. And it's part of being a small business with a new technology.
Understandably so. And I think this goes to show that I think there's a change. It's slowly taking place, but across I'm going to talk about it from the Department of War, DoD side of aspect, because TechMasters is a DoD contractor, and we're seeing that the government is wanting to put more leverage onto small businesses. They're starting to value small businesses more. I think they've always valued them, but they didn't always value them from an innovative side of things. Like a lot of the primes and the large companies, they can come up with ideas and bam, the government's like, yes, you guys created a great thing, but if you would have looked across the entire sector, you could have probably found 4 or 5 small companies that were already doing something like that. So I think that the technology that you guys have is super marketable, and I think that, well, I know that from a TechMasters point of view, we're helping as much as we can to try to tell this story. And one of those things is you coming on the podcast today is telling the story of why this technology exists, who it benefits, how it helps society as a whole, and the medical field as a whole. But I'm going to bring up I'm going to address the topic of another tool, and I know you have lots of things to say about this, but I think it has to be talked about. There's a similar, I'm not going to say similar. There's a technology that existed called Theranos, and I want to address that specific technology. Anytime a company talks about improving blood diagnostics, I would say some people think about what happened with Theranos. And even though the science and platform are very different from what you guys have, that history has somewhat created some skepticism in this space. Would you say that's accurate?
Very accurate.
Okay.
The Theranos debacle has hurt the entire diagnostics industry. That was it was a huge hype factor. The technology never did exist. You're saying they had a technology that existed. Actually never worked. They didn't have a technology that worked. They faked it. They hyped and brought in so much money and lost so much money for investors. So it was really a disaster. And that disaster has rippled across the entire medical industry, but certainly companies like ours that have diagnostics, because it makes people feel like, oh, well, they bamboozled that whole group of investors. So is it possible this could be happening again? So there's several differences. One is they were never able to show that their technology worked. We're able to do that. And Theranos could never have won a government contract, an SBIR contract, anything like that. They could never have won it because you have to show your technical validation. You have to prove that you have technology that works. So I think with their downcoming was saying that they had work in the Department of Defense, and they didn't. And that's really when their downfall happened. So I'd say that has hurt all of us. It's very unfortunate, and it makes all of us have to prove even more that we are legit, that we're authentic, that we have good data, but we do.
Yeah, for sure. And I can say that you guys do because Dr. Carol, Rod, and the TechMasters team has seen it work and work efficiently. And from a data aspect, we're very intrigued. I'll tell the viewers that not only do they have a great technology that is a readily available technology that's been proven, is we're also trying to see where we can bring in more from the data AI side of things. AI is starting to be incorporated into a lot of different things. So we're having talks with Peggy and her team now and in the future to try to see if we can even make this even better.
And I think there's a lot of ground to cover there. So AI, when you have this much data and you're looking at the number of infections that are roaming around the world right now, there's a lot that can be done with AI. We're looking forward to those discussions.
Oh, yeah. So we're excited. Peyton and Josh are beyond excited. I was talking to Peyton the other day. He's like, I can't wait to go over to GeneCapture and hear from Peggy and her team and learn about the technology and stuff. So we'll be coming over soon. And Marvin's told us we're coming over soon. So we're excited. This is a question just from my curiosity, is you talk about the FDA certification. What does all that entail? What's the length? I know you say you have to just go through the wickets, and I'm sure that's probably a lengthy process. Could you talk about what that process looks like, and also from a financial side of things? How costly is that for a small business? Because small businesses, we don't have a ton of money sitting in the bank. We're staying busy, we're making money, but we don't have like these large corporations. Could you talk a little bit about it from that perspective?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So the FDA's role in protecting citizens is to say that a certain therapy is as safe as it is labeled on the box. So you've got to be able to prove that you are as accurate as you say you are. In order to do that, the FDA comes up, when they've got an equation, they come up with a number of samples that are needed to prove that. So in our case, the first product we bring to the FDA is going to be for urinary tract infection. And so we'll need to have 3,000 samples, 3,000 tests done in different hospitals, different demographics. And those 3,000 tests will be put into, the data from that will be put into a submittal. And the FDA will review that submittal, agree or disagree with the accuracy statement on it. And those are the wickets that you get through. There's some analytical studies that go along with that. This, people talk about how incredibly expensive getting through the FDA is for a drug, but for a medical device, it's very different. So the timeline is about a year. And it's about $1 million to be able to do these kind of multiple tests in different places. Now, some of the pathogens that we work on are so rare that you don't need 3,000 of them to get that data. So then it might just be that you're looking for 100. So every different disease state that you go through the FDA can be a little bit different. It's not an impossible process at all. It's just a quality process. You just have to be ready for it when you get there.
I got you. Yeah. So basically, the FDA requires X amount of
I'd say validation.
Validated specimens.
Yes.
So urinary tract infection, you might need 3,000. COVID, you might need 200, and vice versa. And you would do that across multiple different sectors of the medical field. How does that look like from not like I would say like more of a fielding these machines out? What do you envision? How does that process look whenever you get to the spot to where you're ready to go before the FDA and ask for these certain certifications?
Well, it's the same instrument and the same cartridge. Yep. It's just different probes that are on that little microarray. So we start with one, go all the way through that and commercialize that particular panel, and then move into a second one and a third one. So it's just a product path. It's really a path that you just start. A lot of companies have gone through this very same model. You start with one indication. That's what FDA calls it, an indication, and then you move to the next and the next. It's a process. It's a regulatory process that's required, and so many. If you look on the military applications, all those certifications, it's really very similar. You're just proving that your system works like you say it does.
I got you. And with the local community, the different hospitals, have you had an opportunity to go speak to different professionals in here in Huntsville? Or I'm guessing you've probably attended all kinds of conferences across the U.S. What is your? I know you get positive feedback, but how do others say we get this across the finish line? I know it takes a strong financial investment, as we alluded to in the past, the failed technology that we talked about. there was a lot of money that was thrown into that. How do we get past that the hesitancy from investors? I wouldn't say from investors, but just people that are willing to say, hey, this is a great technology. We want to sponsor it. We want to help you get it across the finish line. Where are you seeing the most positive impact here in Huntsville or across the U.S.? And how do we help get that impact to get you to where you need to be at the FDA?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Well, you talked about, you asked me, have we met with hospitals and doctors in Huntsville? Yes, we have. We have a number of advisors, clinical advisors who are local. And the early advisors really are the visionaries. They're the ones that say, I don't know how it's all going to work. I'm not sure how it's all going to happen, but we need this. So let's make it happen. Now, from an investment standpoint, there's a whole step in investment called due diligence, where you come in and say, do the patents really exist? Demo the technology. What third-party hands have agreed that this technology works the way it does? Let's see the market plan. Who are the potential buyers? So you've got a lot to go through to prove on any kind of an investment like that. The conferences that we've attended have been national conferences, either military health systems or clinical lab devices type of conferences. And so we've learned a lot there as well. So I think right now, for any small company, I think it's getting your story out and having people are very interested today, not just in what's the return. And of course, the return could be terrific because we're going into a highly scaled business. But I think the other thing a lot of investors want to know is, what is the impact? Is this a way that I want to spend my money? And a number of our investors are, I would say, impact investors. They want to make a difference, and they see that infection detection is a critical issue for our civilization, and if there's a way to get that solved quickly, it is worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to be a huge advocate for you guys. I have a lot better understanding just sitting with you so far throughout the day today of understanding the technology and how important it is. And I feel that I just have a duty to tell others and to talk about this technology that exists, because human lives could be saved. And when you're talking about human lives being saved, I don't think there's anything more important.
Yeah, I know it. You're right, Luke, and I appreciate that.
To me, it's pretty simple. So thank you for explaining the technology, the differences, and I like the engineering aspect. I love seeing the cartridge. It makes sense to me when I see something. But building a biotech platform internally is not easy. We've alluded to that over the last several minutes. What were the biggest technical hurdles early on that you guys faced?
The biggest technical hurdles, I'd say, when I think about this cartridge here is getting the right flow and temperature to make that little biochemical reaction happen, and then finding a way to automate what's called sample prep. So sample prep is all the things you do to your sample before you are able to measure something. And we've incorporated sample prep into the cartridge. That's very rare. So being able to take a raw sample in and filter it and break that cell open, but to do it in an inexpensive process, that was the big challenge. And it was a big challenge.
I was about to say a big challenge, and took multi-years to figure out, I'm sure, right?
Yes,
That's
a
awesome.
lot of experiments.
Well, you have a great team over there, because that is kind of mind-blowing what that is able to do in such a quick amount of time.
We have I would say, an incredible team. So we have heard from our military customers that one of the things that distinguishes GeneCapture is that we have the deep scientists, but we also have the engineers. And being able to engineer prototypes while we're building, it's a very agile process, has made us really move fast and be very different.
I got you. So I think from just our conversation is there never was a time in your mind, and in my mind for sure, but in your mind, that you said this may not work because you had such a great team. Your mindset's always been, this is going to work. And,
it is.
And I think that's incredible to have that mindset, because that mindset is very crucial along this journey since 2012, since you guys co-founded GeneCapture, and then 2018 into the Mentor Protege program. You guys have continued to run with this idea, and not only idea, you created a product. You created a marketable product that benefits everyone. And I just want to say that most people in the back of their mind, at least like when I do some things, I always say, well, this may not work. But in this case, this will work because it's been proven.
Yes, and perseverance is a big part of the equation. So, I mean, did it work on every experiment and way back in the beginning? Not every time, but we knew that we had a way to make it work. We knew early on that all the pieces were going to come together. And so when you know that, then you can put a lot of energy in. Think of all the great ideas that got given up on just
because they didn't pursue
few
it.
weeks too soon,
Yeah,
right?
a few weeks too soon. A little bit of extra drive, and they could have got across the finish line.
Right.
I want to talk a little bit, and I know we've talked about it, but from a financial aspect, I see this benefiting not only I think the medical field is it's a two-pronged approach because I'm just going to be speaking from my experience. You will know a little bit more about this industry, the medical industry. But the medical industry is a very lucrative field, right? So you have doctors, you have surgeons, you have all these different practices, and they all pay different labs, right? So there's a cost involved. It's like when you bring this technology that you guys have into a medical field, some of these lab companies are going to be, I would say, annoyed, right? By that basically puts them out. I wouldn't say put them out of business, but to a certain degree, it limits the ability for those companies to succeed as well as they have, right?
Well, only under the current landscape of having a lab in a special place. But for those labs to be able to, in a sense, own the point of care application or distribution, it's wide open.
Okay.
So I'd say I don't think we limit other labs. I think we just bring infection detection in a much bigger way out to where the patient is. But the current labs, there's so much work those labs have to do that is not about infection detection. They're still trying to figure out, characterize blood to characterize disease. So infection detection is one piece of it. It's a really important piece, but it's one piece of all this.
That makes sense, and I'm glad you said that because I'm just thinking from a more targeted viewpoint. So that's a good point. But there's so much more that these labs do. This solves a specific problem. I also think. Well, I'm going to go. I know we talked about it earlier. The applicability of this technology in the military, I think is crucial. I want to hit on that some more because I'm a former U.S. Army signal officer. I spent 7 years in the military, so I know of situations that this could have been used effectively. And is there any I know that the government, not the government, the military is pushing for new technology. You got to have a technology readiness level of a 4 or 5 or 6 on the TRL scale. Are there any opportunities you guys are tracking right now that could help provide some funding from the military to get you guys through the FDA process, or does the military require you to go through the FDA process first? Is there how can we leverage what some of the biotechnology that the military wants? Where's the friction point, I guess, there between the FDA and the military?
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And the military is very concerned about not having our warfighters be considered guinea pigs. So they say FDA clearance is absolutely imperative for any products that are used in the military. That adds a lot of time to getting some of these new products out, but it's good for safety factor. So right now we're doing a couple things. One is rapid identification of pathogens that are considered emerging possible biothreats that would affect and impact warfighters in austere or far forward environments. But the other is trying to get a quick handle on what's called pathogen X or disease X, where something new is out there, we don't know what it is, like the early days of COVID, and trying to quickly figure out what family of virus is this in. If you can figure out and triage quickly what area of the pathogen's world this is in, you can then move quickly to sequencing. But if you don't know that in the early days, and that's a very sort of asymmetrical time where a little bit of time causes huge, huge contagion. So cutting that time down is a big part of something we're working on now called Pathogen X. And we're working with the Chem Biodefense Agency at the moment on this very product.
Oh, that's awesome, because that's what I was thinking is early on detection of because at some point you got to think about the next war is not. It might not be fought by tanks and ships and aircraft.
Right.
It could be a biotech.
A biowarfare, a bioweapon, right.
Bioweapon.
Yep.
And that's something we have to look at. So this technology could also assist in that, identify early detection and stuff like
that's
that.
so important, because this is one of those areas where you can save illness and infection and death by just getting on top of it quickly. But in an even bigger way, you can save that huge ripple effect of many people getting sick.
I got you. That's awesome. One of my questions was when gene capture succeeds at scale, what changes globally? And I think we've done a good job of explaining that so far. Is there anything that you would like to say? Let's say in the next 2 years, you go through the FDA process, you get certified on these different pathogenic levels. What does the medical field look like? This is going to be all the hospitals, pediatrics offices, et cetera. How do you envision it?
I see that we could be identifying infections, I kind of say anywhere, anytime. So it would be a big change of perspective. And this sometimes takes a little while on medical devices, but a change of perspective in people just appreciating that it doesn't have to take 3 days to figure this out. There is a new way to do it. And so I think bringing that kind of information to citizens fast is going to really build the system quickly. And then I think from a biotech and national security, being able to have equipment on hand to be prepared for the next pandemic is also going to make a big change in how we look at the world.
I agree. With all that we've discussed today, what would mean the most to you personally to see this succeed at a very large scale? What would say, I did it. We did it right. Where do you stand on from that side of the house?
Well, it would definitely be a we. There's a lot of people involved that make this happen. I'd say being able to keep people healthier without adding a lot of expense to the world would be just a great sense of accomplishment.
That's awesome. I think would be a huge accomplishment, and I'm excited to see it at some point. Peggy, really thankful and grateful that you decided to join us on the podcast today. From leading nonprofits to building a platform that could change how the world detects infection, your journey is anything but linear. It's been all over the place, and you've succeeded very well. So good luck on your future endeavors. Thank you for sharing your story and your vision with us. And I would open the floor up to allow you to say whatever you would like to say to our viewers, to anyone that's watching. Is there any kind of message that you want to leave them for the last part of the podcast?
Well, thank you, Luke, for having me here and having this discussion. And I just want to say that our relationship with Tech Masters has been very meaningful. So we met Tech Masters through the Mentor Protege program, which is a really different program. It's not based on one particular contract. It's based on basically building quality into suppliers. And it's been terrific. So no, I say thank you very much. I appreciate it. We've got a lot of work to do, but a really great team of folks to do it. So we're looking forward to getting through FDA and getting this product commercialized.
That's right. Commercialization is the top priority, and we're here to assist. And I know Marvin's here to assist. We're happy to support however we can. And, of course, this collaboration is super important to us. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And as Dr. Carroll says, life is a journey. This is all a journey. We're at a pretty exciting part of the journey right now.
The journey is you're over at this side. You started here, and now you're down here. So it's exciting to see. We're gonna get you to the FDA finish line here soon. I know we will.
Thank you.
But to our listeners, thank you for joining the podcast today. We really appreciate you guys, and look forward to talking to you guys next time.